Dito kasi na. Dito kasi na.
So what lesson have you learned from the data salesman? Did you find any life lessons from the text of the movie? You're reading that text, right? তোমাদের এমনিটা ড্রামা নিয়ে টেক্সট রাখতে বলি মানে মুভিটা শর্ট পড়া হয়নি এখন মানে পড়ানো হচ্ছে এখন মানে মুভিটা দিয়ে শুরু হয়েছে মুভিটা আমি This place based on that European dream. Next, the physics and areas. Please respond to roll call. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Present ma'am.
11, 12,
Present ma'am.
13, 14,
Yes ma'am.
15, 18,
Yes ma'am.
19, 20,
Yes, ma'am.
21,
Yes, ma'am.
22,
Yes, ma'am.
23,
Present ma'am.
24,
Yes ma'am.
25,
Yes, ma'am.
27,
Yes, ma'am.
28,
Yes, ma'am.
34, 35, yes, 37, 39, 46, 48,
Yes ma'am.
50, 51,
Yes, ma'am.
52, 53,
Yes, ma'am.
54,
Yes ma'am.
55,
Yes, ma'am.
57,
Yes, ma'am.
59, 60,
Yes, ma'am.
62, 63,
Yes ma'am.
65,
Yes ma'am.
66,
Yes, ma'am.
67,
Yes, ma'am.
68,
Yes ma'am.
69,
Yes, ma'am.
70,
Yes ma'am.
71,
Yes, ma'am.
72,
Yes, ma'am.
73,
Yes ma'am.
74,
Yes, ma'am.
75,
Yes, ma'am.
76,
Yes, ma'am.
77, 78,
Yes ma'am.
79,
Yes, ma'am.
80, 81, 82,
Yes ma'am.
83, 84,
Yes, ma'am.
85,
Yes ma'am.
86,
Yes, ma'am.
87,
Yes, ma'am.
90, 91,
Present, ma'am.
6,
Present ma'am.
24,
Yes ma'am.
27,
Yes ma'am.
2, yes ma'am, 18. So the last class we couldn't finish up all. We have 2 more stanzas. vampire to kill the father. But you died before I had time. So the speaker could not succeed in her plan. And in the second last stanza, it starts with the line, if I've killed one man, I've killed two. Because we know that at some point in the poem, this daddy and the husband, there is one kind of assimilation. So if I had killed one man, that Hitler or Panzerman or whatever model that she prepared, if she has killed that one man, she has killed two. The vampire who said he was you. So when she is saying that if I have killed one man, I have killed two, probably she is not talking about that actual murder, killing of the person. Perhaps killing the memories, killing the influence, the impacts or the influence of that person or those two people in her life. She wants to detach herself from that influence, from those people and all the memories that are associated with those two people, specifically to her. So you have killed one man, I have killed two. The vampire who said he was you. In one of the stanzas, she presented the image of a devil. That you looked no less a devil for that comparison. And here, the vampire. The vampire who said he was you. So who was the vampire? It could be her husband. Could be. The vampire who said he was you and drank my blood for a year. 7 years. The 7 years of her marriage. So from the father it has become all about her husband who abused her through these 7 years. And she wants to kill that man. And when this man will be killed, will no longer exist, then all the painful memories.
Maybe she was talking about giving the ideas also that she gave the illusion of Hitler who believed in the Aryan race theory of the empire. And her husband also, he was a monarchist. So maybe
He was
a monarchist man. Maybe giving the ideas also, the concept of
yes, idea, concept, memory, influence, whatever you call it. We are not talking about the flesh, the body. That murder. This is not that murder, the actual murder. And whenever she is talking about her husband, there is only one model, her father. That father comes again and again. So, the vampire who said he was you and drank my blood for a year, 7 years. If you want to know, Daddy, you can lie back now. Perhaps since she is in a state of depression, extreme depression, she is accusing her daddy, her father, of whatever happened to her. If her father was there, probably those things wouldn't happen. That childish, girlish attitude or behavior, she's expressing that if you want to know daddy, you can lie back now. So I have killed that man. So they are separated. I have killed that man, the vampire who said he was you, and drank me back for a year, for 7 years. And if you want to know, so you can lie back now. And then there is a stake in your fat black heart. Again, that vampire image. A stake in your fat black heart. The stake through which you can kill the vampire. And the villagers never liked you. So here it's a little bit confusing what she actually indicated by using the villagers. Who are the villagers? That is confusing. The villagers never liked you. Perhaps the other people in her life, they are dancing and stamping on you. They are celebrating your day. They always knew it was you. And the last line, This is a proclamation and announcement that daddy, you bastard, I am through. And when she is saying this, we don't think she is talking to the father. She is talking to the husband. She is talking about the husband. I am through. I am done.
Have you heard of patriarchal system?
Yes, patriarchal system, the patriarchal society. If you take it as a personal poem, then it could be about the husband or could be the father also, since we know very little about her father and her relationship with her father since he died early. And then from a broader perspective, it can be about the patriarchal society too. And then there was another thing. Since we are talking about the idea, the concept, and the influence of her father upon her, the influence of her husband, who was also a great poet, and she knew other poets of her time. She was very close to Robert Lowell. He had a great influence on Sylvia Plath. So all the influences and all the figures, the male figures in her life. And she was a woman poet. So all the influences of the male poets or the man on this female poet, she needed to come out of that influence. She needed to make her own space in the literary world too, not only in the society. As an individual, as a human being, she has some rights. She has the rights to live, to survive in her own will. But at the same time, she was also a poet. She was very brilliant. She was like her husband. She was no subordinate or inferior to her husband. She was also a brilliant poet, and it was needed for her to establish her own writing style, to establish her place in that male-dominated society, male-dominated literary world. That was also important. So if you talk about the idea, since we are not sure about what idea or influence she is talking here, we only know that perhaps it's about her father and then about her husband. But when she says that you bastard, I am through, perhaps she is talking about that separation, that I am done with that relationship, and at the same time she is also talking about that influence, that I am done with that. Though sadly, it was written in 1962 and in 1963, she ended her life. So we could not get to read her literary works, which were or could have been written without the influence of those men. And then this poem was written in 1962. And the next poem that we will read, that is the Colossus. Do you have this poem? It was written in 1959, before Daddy. And her poetry collection, which was published in 1960, the title was the Colossus. It was the title poem. And in the Colossus, again you will find, if you have the poem, please open it. This poem starts with, I shall never get you put together entirely. This poem was written earlier, before writing Daddy. This poem appeared before that poem. This poem starts with, I shall never get you put together entirely. And if you remember in Daddy, she compared her father, the Daddy, with a statue, a gigantic statue, whose head is in one region and the other parts are in different regions. Perhaps a broken statue, the broken image of a god. And here in the Colossus, I shall never get you put together entirely. Perhaps the speaker was trying to fix it. The Colossus, this is actually the Colossus, the statue of Colossus of Rhodes. It was the statue of the Greek sun god. And it was destroyed during an earthquake. And later the Greeks, if you just Google it, you will find this piece of information, that the Greeks, they never fixed it because they believed in an oracle, that it couldn't be fixed. So I shall never get you put together entirely. This statue, this is a broken statue, and she was trying hard to put it together, all those together, but she could never do that. Pieced, glued and properly joined it. Mule, bray, pig, grunt and body cackles, these are the disturbing sounds processed from your great lips. The great lips, the lips of that great statue, the statue of that god. Those disturbing sounds are coming out of the lips of that god statue. It's worse than a barnyard. So the image that we find here in the very first stanza of this poem, that is the image of a broken statue, and the sounds or the noise that it's producing is worse than the sounds you will get to hear in a barnyard. And the speaker has been working hard to fix it, but she is now kind of exhausted, and she kind of accepts that she cannot fix it. And here the statue, again, this symbolizes, or this is a metaphor for her father. The statue of her father, not the statue, the actual statue, the idea of the father. All the bits and pieces, all the facts, all the images, the memories, she was trying to put all those together to create that model, to create that full image, but she is unable to do that. We have seen this in Daddy 2, where she accepts defeat, that she has no knowledge of his origin because she cannot identify the root, that village, that town. She cannot speak that language. So there is a gap between these two. And here we find it. So perhaps you consider yourself an oracle. It can be a reference to that oracle. You will find some allusions to the Greek mythology in this poem. So first of all, the Colossus, that is one of the references. And then perhaps you consider yourself an oracle. Perhaps you consider yourself as a god, whom we human being cannot understand. Mouthpiece of the dead or of some god or other. 30 years now I have labored to dredge the silt from your throat. I am none the wiser. These three lines are important because we have found this 30 years, mention of this 30 years before. It's been 30 years. She has been trying to create that model. She has been trying to know the father. She has been trying to come out of that influence and all the sad memories associated with that. So 30 years now I have labored to dredge the silt from your throat. This is also metaphorical. She was trying to clean the statue for 30 years to make it perfect, to make it look like perfect, but she cannot do that. It's not perfect. I am none the wiser. Again she accepts the defeat. For all the labors of these 30 years, everything went in vain. She is none the wiser. Yes?
Does she have a distorted sense of time? Because everything falls neatly at the end of decades, but in reality, these events didn't happen like that. Like I was 10 when they buried you, but she was 8 in reality. But she's maybe fictionalizing some aspects of her life for the poems, or did she really have a distorted sense of time? Because depression can cause that.
Distorted sense of time. But why do you think that she has the distorted sense of time? Because when the poets write the poems, they have certain poetic liberty. So her father died when she was 8, but she can make it 10. 10 sounds perfect. 30 years. It was written in 1959. Perhaps she was not 30 at that time. Probably 28 or 29. But again in Daddy, we see this 30 years. 30, perhaps this sounds good. Instead of 29 years or 28 years, 30 sounds perfect. kind of, we talk about the round figure. And distorted sense of time, yes, that can be possible.
I said that because in her mind, maybe her father's death and her being almost drowned, these two events are connected. So she's condensing the time
She has
between.
lost the thread of time.
Maybe. Like in her mind, these events are much closer than they really were.
The answer to all your questions is maybe. And that's why I don't like Sylvia Plath's poem. Don't write it in your answer script. This is my personal.
Her opinion might be true or maybe relatable because Sylvia Plath is sick as we know. So it might be both. What? Her mental instability that it was
Just not mentally stable.
and that's why the time might
Yes. Or because of all those reasons, it is very difficult to judge her as a poet, judge her as a human being, and to evaluate her literary works. Because we are not sure about her mental state at that time. We know that she was suffering from the depression, not only just some depression for 2 years or 3 years, from the very beginning, when she was a child, since then. And then the abuses that she faced in her conjugal life. We do not know the extent of those abuses. What kind of husband actually Tetian was. Did he verbally abuse her or did he physically abuse her? How? We do not know. Only the person who went through those experiences, she knew that. And whatever she is talking about, her experience is her experience. We the readers can gaze, can assume so many things but we do not know actually. It is also possible that the abuses that she received, that was not that severe. But because of all the other things happening in her mind and in her life, it felt to her that it's really severe, it's intolerable. And from that feeling and perspective, she compared her own trauma, her own sufferings to the sufferings of those people, the Jews. She compared it to the genocide. But we do not know. But since it's insensitive to compare individual sufferings with that mass murder, that genocide, it's also insensitive of us to criticize her experiences. Because we do not know what actually that person was going through. Each individual is different. Your strength, your mental strength might be different from someone else. You might be very strong. The other person might be very weak. The things that you can endure and the things that you can survive, probably it's near to impossible for some other people to endure. So we cannot judge actually. That's why reading the poems become difficult for the reader. You can sympathize with her. But I don't know how we can show the empathy. Can you feel the way she felt? Because you do not know the personal experiences or the personal incidents. So that's one of the difficulties. So I just remember, probably on YouTube you will find Sylvia Plath's own recitation of the poem Dead. Deity or Lady Lazarus, I'm not sure, but you can search. And she had a really great voice, the way she recited the poem. So when she said that 30 years now I have labored to dredge the silt from your throat, I am none the wiser. You can compare it with the lines in the other poem. It's a poem. When she said that you do not do any more. Black shoe, in which I have lived like a fool for 30 years. It was written later. I am none the wiser, that was written earlier. And then it was written later that you do not do any more. It's been 30 years and I am done. I have wasted time cleaning this statue, trying to fix it, living with the memories, trying to create the images, and now in Daddy, finally she declared that you do not do anymore. And the last line, I am through. So, scaling little ladders with glue pots and pails of Lysol, she is trying to describe the process of cleaning the statue. I crawl like an ant in mourning over the weight acres of your brow to melt the immense skull plates and clear the bulbs white tubuli of your eyes. So she does this every day. This cleaning of the statue, trying to put it together, trying to mend it, fix it, she does it every day. She has been doing it for 30 years. Just the way she described that she has lived in that flat shoe like a foot for 30 years. The same experience.
Isn't it like that she's refusing the typical gender role that society imposes on women? Like being able to construct things or able to...
You can say that if you view it from the feminist perspective and the male influence that we have discussed. Not only the ordinary man, the male poets. It was difficult for a female poet to create her own place in the society, in the poetic society. So, a blue sky out of the Orestia. You have read Agamemnon, right? In Greek and Roman classics. Agamemnon was killed for sacrificing his daughter Iphigenia. He was murdered by his wife Clytemnestra, and later he had another daughter, Electra. So Orestes came back to take revenge, to kill Clytemnestra, and Electra, she was also on her father's side. And there is this, read about this Electra complex. Carl Jung, he came up with this idea, this concept, Electra complex. It was the opposite of Freud's Oedipus complex. So, a blue sky out of the Orestia. Did you read the poem Electra Gun? It's a beautiful poem, right? And what do you think about Electra and her feelings towards her father?
They're great, and as you are describing them, like she was sitting as if
She was mourning throughout the whole poem.
moving, and she was expecting him to be revived.
Yes. And do you find some similarities between that Electra and the speaker here throughout these poems, Daddy and the Colossus, the feelings? This speaker is also kind of in some kind of mourning.
But here, the speaker is in negativity, but Electra is hopeful.
Electra is that representative of those angelic, soft, feminine figures, which Clytemnestra was not. That's why she could become a murderer. She was a monster. Electra was not. Probably Iphigenia also was not. Cassandra was probably to some extent. But she also showed some kind of resistance when she wrote the promise. So, a blue sky out of Orestia, another illusion. The Orestia, that trilogy. So she is like that Electra, arches above us. So this blue sky, the blue sky above that statue, looks like it takes the speaker back to that time of Agamemnon, Orestes and Electra. Oh Father, all by yourself. Now she's addressing the person as, oh Father, all by yourself. You are pithy and historical as the Roman Forum. I open my lunch on a hill of black cypress. Your fluted bones and acanthine hair are littered in their old anarchy to the horizon line. It would take more than a lightning stroke. Lightning stroke, it can be a reference to Zeus, who could kill people, also gods with that lightning bolt, to create such a ruin, the ruin that has been created, the broken statue. Perhaps only a lightning stroke can create such a ruin. It was the work of another god. And when Agamemnon was killed, his wife Clytemnestra, she prayed to Zeus for that revenge. And when she succeeded, she expressed gratitude towards Zeus. Zeus the fulfiller, that's what she said. So, in these lines, the speaker is comparing her relationship with her father to that relationship between Agamemnon and Electra. And you can also imagine that Agamemnon was out there for 10 years in Troy, fighting that war. So Electra, she also didn't have that time to spend with her father, to know her father. So this speaker is also like Electra, trying to know the father, lamenting the loss of the father, who wanted to reunite with the father. And she is also mourning, like Electra, the way she was mourning after the death of her father, she is also mourning. So, nights I squat in the cornucopia of your left ear out of the wind. And the last stanza, counting the red stars and those of plum color, the sun rises under the pillar of your tongue. It is another reference to that sun god, the sun rises under the pillar of your tongue. My hours are married to shadow. My hours, my time, my life are married to shadow. There is nothing that can make me happy in my life. There is no happiness in my life. My hours are married to shadow. The word married. And in the poem Deity or Lady Lazarus, where she said, I do and I do, probably Lady Lazarus, which may indicate the marriage vow. And here my hours are married to shadow. No longer do I listen for the scrape of a keel on the blank stones of the landing. So the last 3 lines. These last 3 lines express disappointment, frustration, the depression. In Lady Lazarus and Daddy, the speaker that we find, who is a rebel, who knows her situation, who is well aware of the experiences, and who now knows what to do. That she needs to sever the tie with those men and their memories. But here, in 1959, the speaker of the Colossus, she is gradually becoming aware of her situation, that my hours are married to shadow. All those crying and mourning, there is no purpose. There is no fulfillment in that, because my hours are married to shadow. No longer do I listen for the scrape of a keel. I no longer try to fix the statue. I no longer listen for the scrape of a keel, the sound of the boat coming on the blank stones of the landing. And here she is depressed, she is frustrated. She is kind of accepting the situation. And then when you read these 2 poems, the Colossus and Daddy, you can compare these 2 poems and the speaker and her attitude throughout these 2 poems. In the Colossus, this is just a description of how she tries to fix that statue, how she tries to bring all the ideas, all the memories of her father, and then she accepts that she cannot do that. She has been doing that for 30 years and now she is tired. She is exhausted of doing that. And the last line, and then in between, she told us about the process every day, what she does to make that statue, to clean it, and then she compared her father with Agamemnon and herself with Electra. And then in the last 3 lines, she just states that no longer do I listen for the scrape of a keel. Now she understands that all those bygone days will not come back. Her father will not come back. and she must accept the reality. So now she no longer listens for the scrape of a keel, the sound of the boat on the blank stones of the landing. So this poem, the father. This father can be the actual father. Again, it can be the metaphorical father, the father figures in her life. She didn't have her father, but she found some other people who had great influences on her life. For example, Robert Lowell and the other poets. And probably you will find this information too. She was in a competition with another female poet over Robert Lowell. Probably the name of that other poet was M something, I forgot actually. So all those metaphorical fathers, the literary fathers. This speaker, this is the image of a daughter. A depressed daughter who is mourning for the loss of her father, for not knowing her father. But at the same time, she understands that it's time to sever the ties, to detach herself from all those painful memories, to establish herself. It's time to establish herself. And then if you take this speaker as a poet, a writer, it is also the time for her to realize that she must come out of the influence of all those male literary figures. She must create her unique writing style to make herself immortal as a poet, to express her thoughts. So you can read this poem, you can read this symbolically from these two perspectives. This can be about the father, the actual father, and this also can be about the other father figures. And this poem can be about the poet, the speaker as a poet. We have one more poem, right? Tulips. Okay, so when you will read the explanations of all those poems, please also read about Sylvia Plath's personal life, also read about Ted Hughes, because there is an influence. Since again and again she alludes to her husband, also read about confessional poems. What it was, confessional poetry, and how did the confessional poets express all those taboo things in their poems. They frequently talked about marriage, divorce, and other issues. And then probably you can find a connection between all those things that happened in the poet's life and the things that you see happening in the poems. And then you have some creative liberty, some literary liberty to interpret it in your own way. Like the Colossus, the father, the Colossus, you can also talk about the other male members in the society, in the literary society, who didn't give women writers that much freedom. And you know about the female writers in the 18th century, during the time of Charlotte Bronte, Anne Bronte, or Emily Bronte, that at that time the publishers, they were not eager to publish the works of the female authors, the problems that they faced throughout the ages. And when they sent their works to the publishers, they used a pseudonym, a male name. So Jane Eyre, it was published under the name Cararville. Because they had other concerns, because if the publishers or the reviewers get to know that this is written by a woman, they will not take the work seriously. So that's why they use the pseudonym. So it was really difficult for women to establish themselves in the literary society. Because there will always be people like Ted Hughes who will be concerned about your talent, that you may surpass, the wife may surpass the talent of and the brilliance of the husband. So there were those problems. And there are also also facts about that after Sylvia Plath's death, Ted Hughes burned some of her diaries and notes. What if the other people, the readers, get to know about what she actually thought, what she actually suffered, her own experiences, but from that perspective? So you can read it from that point of view too.
সাইডে যাই আমি আসতে
কি লিখছে